This meeting is being recorded.
I forget how loud it always is. Mychal Threets, I'm sure you all know, but he is a librarian and literacy ambassador who grew up in libraries as a homeschool kid. Mychal loves stories. He enjoys learning something new every day, and that includes learning why people love their local library. He uses social media to share the stories of library kids and library grown-ups that he encounters in library land. He's animated about encouraging people to believe him when he says he's happy they are here. And when not in libraries, he's often with his troublesome cats, Machine Gun Kitty and Kissing Cat Barlow, which I love those names. And tonight, our moderator will be our very own librarian in adult services, Jabez Patterson. And I cannot wait to hear the conversation.
Thank you, Mark. Mychal, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Happy to see you virtually. Welcome to the Oak Park Public Library. No, it's not your first trip in our state, but we're so appreciate you for spending time with us.
No, thanks for having me. I've been to Chicago, to Illinois, to various parts of Illinois several times in the last year. So now it's nice to be in a virtual space. I love that we have the same hoodie, the same sweater on. So very nice. Already starting the webinar off quite well.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, if anyone wants these sweatshirts, please go to our website, oppl.org. They are quite comfy and you'll represent the library. And hey, by the way, happy National Library Week to you.
Happy National Library Week to you and everybody. What a wonderful week.
I will do a terrible job in this moderating gig if I don't ask you this first question. How are your cats?
They're doing very good. They may make an appearance at some point. It's 4:30 in California, so this is their prime sleeping hours. But I've now talked about them the last couple minutes, so I'm sure that they can hear me talking about them. So they'll be wandering in here very, very soon. But they're doing quite well. Kissing Cat Barlow has pica, so she tends to love to eat inedible things. She has eaten through all the rubber part of my sink several times. And also that tubing that connects the dryer to the wall. She loves to eat through that all the time whenever possible. My maintenance people at the apartment complex are getting very, very upset with me because I think they've had to replace it close to 15 times in the 3 years I've had the cats. So I am struggling with the cats, but they're living their best lives, so they're doing as well as can be.
Absolutely. We look forward to an appearance in our conversation today. And also do us all Midwesterns, mostly Illinoisans, a huge favor. Give us that California weather.
It is warm today. It's actually been a little bit cold for California, but it is doing much better. I think I went to Illinois not too long ago, and it was a sunny day, and you all were like, it is never like this time of year in Illinois. You must have brought California with you. And I was like, I do what I can. The weather's I actually prefer rainy weather. I prefer dreary weather.
Well,
it's much better. It's much better for my mental health for it to be like cloudy, even chance of rain. I like the sunshine, but it's a bit too hot for me.
Okay, well, let's just do a fair trade. Like you take my weather, I'll take yours.
we can call Storm and the X-Men, and we'll make the trade happen.
That sounds like a deal to me. All right, let's begin our conversation, shall we?
Sure, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Throughout your TikToks, Instagram, and all through your social media presence, you spoke so passionately about your early love for libraries. Can you pinpoint like a specific memory or an experience that you had that started that intentional connection?
You know what I mean? There's one that I always talk about, the pet parade at the library. But I think for me, it's just I've always loved the library. I always talk about getting my first library card at the age of 5, just because my mom homeschooled me and my siblings. So I was the first one of my siblings to get a library card. Just because my mom was already taking out 50 items at a time. So she needed to take away even more from the other kids, from the other families of Solano County, where I grew up at. So I was the first lucky one to get my own library card. So that was the first special moment for me, was just being able to get a library card, just being like, yes, I have my own library card. I don't have to use my mom's anymore. I can run in there and check things out all by myself. So that was most special to me. But the pet parade is by far like my favorite story, probably like my core memory of falling in love with the library of library lore, where I had my cat as a kid. My family did. I didn't have my own pets until these two silly cats that you might see tonight. But her name was Jewel, and I'd always told her I love the library, Jewel. I was always reading books to her, having such good times. I always told her one day I'm going to take you to the library, the Fairfield Civic Center library. You're going to see what it's all about. And mom and dad are always like, that's cool that you want to take her to the library, but it's never going to happen. They don't let cats visit the library. It's just for human beings. And I was like, I know, but I love the library. The library people are always kind to me. Maybe they'll let me bring Jewel to the library. But they were always like, I don't know about that. And then one day, one brave librarian greenlit the pet parade at the library, a children's librarian. Of course, only a children's librarian would make a pet parade happen. Not sorry adult services people. You're like, no, because, and you're also right, because it was a terrible idea to have this pet parade at the library. But I had the time of my life. My cat was there. There were a whole bunch of other cats. There were dogs. There were snakes. There were guinea pigs, rabbits, all sorts of creatures. Our beloved library pets. But there were no leashes. There were no crates, no cages, nothing. Just kids and grown-ups holding on to their pets for dear life. All the library love contained onto those pets. And they gave my cat a yellow ribbon. I was ecstatic. I was so happy, jumping up and down with library joy. I was like, yes, I knew it. I knew when Jewel came to the library, she was going to be the best, because every library kid has a little dash of arrogance in them. And I was just so happy. Of course, you know that I was not the only one who got a ribbon for their pets. My dad was like, "Look around, buddy," when he picked us up, and every other family, every other kid and their pet got a ribbon too. But I was like, I don't care. I got a ribbon. This is my day. This is the library. This is it for me. I don't know how old I was. I was probably maybe 7 or 8, but it just made me so happy to be able to bring my cat to the library. I've never since brought any pet to the library. My library did recently, a couple years ago, have another pet parade, but my two cats do not like to leave my apartment. They don't like to leave the house, which I can relate to that energy. I probably pass it down to them. But that's my core memory of like, yes, that's the library to me. Just that sheer love that I experienced bringing my cat to the library, surrounded by other pet lovers and library lovers at the same time.
So you mean to tell me you didn't have parents who sent you and your younger sister to the library to do the summer reading challenge, and as you and or potential your sibling would do the reading challenge, read enough books, you get the free coupon to Pizza Hut, and then you go above and beyond to do the free entry to Six Flags? You didn't have parents like that or loved ones like that?
We didn't have the Six Flags component, but I definitely was a summer reading challenge kid. I was that kid who was always reading extra books, who was reading 100 books, 200 books, because I thought that I was going to get extra vouchers for
Yeah.
Pizza Hut, and the library people had to break my heart and say you only get two to three max, Michael. We know what you're up to. I was that kid, but I was always at the library because that's where we went for homeschooling. So they
Yeah.
knew my reading tricks, and they were like, "Sorry, we know how much you read. We're not going to let this happen. We don't have that many certificates to hand out." But I was very much a summer reading challenge kid. I was reading Encyclopedia Brown. I was reading The Great Brain, Beverly Cleary, Matt Christopher, all sorts of things just to get that free Pizza Hut books. I was going to read a book without the incentive, but they threw pizza in, and I was all for it.
Well, the end of my story was my sister and I did the reading challenges.
Uh-huh.
Parents never took us to Pizza Hut and never took us to Six Flags.
Oh no.
And now that my sister and I are adults, we still give our parents a hard time. It's like, hey, you owe us pizza from Pizza Hut. You owe us that entry to Six Flags. We're still waiting for it. And it still never happened.
If they're here, they're like, it's the thousandth time that we've heard the story. What is going on? Now in California they have an in and out reading challenge.
Ooh, that's cool.
Where kids can read, I think, read 5 books and they get a free In and Out burger. And half the kids I would visit at the school libraries, they would be like, I'm not a fan of In and Out. I don't really want burgers. But I love it. They were always like, I'll still do it though. And I can give the burger to my mom. I can give the burger to my little brother, my little sister. I'll give it to my grandpa. He loves In and Out. So I always like that. Even if they weren't the biggest fans of In and Out, they were like, you know what? I can read for them though. So I love that they're challenged to read so that other people in their life can get the free burgers.
Hey, that's a beautiful feeling. Uh, and thank you for sharing your story, by the way. How has your perception of libraries and librarianship evolved from childhood to now in your current role?
It's evolved quite a bit. As a kid, I always wished, and I would talk with my mom about this the other day. I wish as a kid I would have known how big of a deal the library was going to be in my life. Again, I've always loved the library, but I never thought the library was going to be what I made my career, what I ended up talking about most of the year in my life. I was always there, but I never saw men behind the front desk. I didn't see people of color behind the front desk. So I thought it was like forbidden from me to become a librarian, but I definitely never thought it was an option for me to become a librarian. I don't know if I just thought that they just were born with the title, almost like the royal court of England, where you're just like, oh, if you're not born into it, you can't. It's not the life for you. But it's grown so much. I mean, so I say all that to say, as a kid, I think that as many library adults think that I didn't realize there were so many different positions in libraries. I didn't realize that there were shelvers, that there were library assistants, that there were children's librarians, teen librarians, adult librarians, administrators, managers, and the such. I thought just everybody at the library was just an all-encompassing librarian. So it's been very cool for me to see that to get that knowledge once I applied to the library. That they were like, you're not qualified to be a librarian quite yet, but here's the application to be a shelver. And I learned so much, and it's cool to see that I joined the library in November of 2013. So almost 12 years ago, I first joined the library, and it's grown so much since then that now there are many more people who are working for the library. A bunch of people who have silly curly hair like myself, big old giant afros. A bunch of people who are covered in tattoos like myself. All sorts of people with pink hair, with blue hair, with green hair, and it's just so very cool to show all the community that anyone can work at the library. It's possible for any of us. So it's kind of cool that we've gone from the stoic cardigan wearing, high bun wearing, glasses with the chain librarian to now it's like it represents everybody. People still have the high bun, the cardigan. I love a good cardigan during the winter. I'm all about it. But it's just been cool to see like how much librarianship has changed, how much the education is a little bit different. Like online is is a more powerful tool now. We're still learning about all the databases, but we're also learning how to help people when they're struggling with their mental health. We're trying to make sure that the library is an inclusive place for neurodivergent folks. We're trying to say, yes, you do belong in the library, and library people as a collective are brainstorming, trying to think of ways that we can assure people that that is true. So I'm only 35 years, and libraries have changed so very much in 35 years. I mean, when I first joined the library, it was still very much like almost like circulation versus reference. And now there's a lot of people who are like learning both. A lot of people are like in circulation. They're like, yeah, I want to be a librarian. So can I learn about both things? And now we're coming together so that we're just like, yes, every role in the library is super imperative. It is critical to the operations of the library that every role is valued and seen as critical. And that's how we make sure that the neighborhood thrives, is with the local library.
I agree with you on that, and we'll talk more about the fashion and more details of librarianship throughout our conversation today. I want to share something about myself. I used to be a former teacher before I became a librarian. And luckily for me, I taught STEM, by the way, but luckily for me, I didn't have to deal with ELA standards or reading standards. I had good colleagues, good friends who are telling me more about I guess the upbringing of like making sure students are reading up to level. But you are a big proponent of like reading is for everyone and everyone should be able to read whatever book they want, despite having to deal with reading levels and Lexile levels. But I wanted to, for people who don't know, I wanted you to share your thoughts on reading levels or Lexile, as educators will say, or parents. And then also, how is it helpful or hurtful for readers?
I That's a complex question. I don't think that reading levels, levels, um, are harmful. I don't harmful, and I don't also think that there's like no help whatsoever from them. But I would say to overall answer the question, I believe they are a hindrance to readers, to young readers, and not just to young readers, but also to grown-ups. I believe that they rely way too much on those reading levels, so much so that it creates a whole bunch of worry, a whole bunch of fear within them when they come to the library. And it creates even more confusion when they do go from school library to public library, because for as far as I know, almost, and I visited libraries all over the United States, the vast majority, I would argue probably 95% of public libraries, since I haven't been to every single public library yet, they do not organize the library by reading level. So when someone comes in there and they ask for a 4.8 reading level, a 5.2, whatever they may be looking for their class projects, we have to say the library isn't arranged by that. We can, and oftentimes we will say, oh, we can get a handful of books. We can see where we're at. We can find a different range to help you out. So that takes a little bit more time. At that point, they're even more stressed because they're like, oh, I didn't even know that. I thought we had come to the public library and just start looking for our 5.0 reading level. So they're already stressed because they thought it was going to be a quick trip to the library to get the books for their kids. And then the library people, we have to say, okay, are they in a place where they can learn how to search the library catalog for the reading level, or do they basically want us to do all the work? Which is fine. I think that's something for library people to know too, is that it's okay to just do it for them. I know we're always like, we want to teach them. We want to show them how to do it. And we do. We want to teach you things. We want to make sure that you want to learn, but we also want to create joy at the library. We have to recognize when they're stressed and we say, you know what? It's okay. You know what? We'll start out with Magic Tree House. We're going to hammer home that graphic novels are real books. Maybe we'll go with New Kid by Jerry Craft. We'll get the kids interested by showing them which Dog Man is at their reading level. Get them interested, saying, yeah, see, Mom, see, Dad, Dog Man is at my reading level. It is real reading. So that's the joyful part. But I think in answering your question again, I think the hindrance is just that reading level that makes them think that that's the only books that their kids can read. And from going to the public library, they often forget that almost every library you can check out more than one book from the library. So they're so focused on helping their child get to that reading level, which is not wrong because that's the expectations that's set for them by the school because of education standards. My mom was a teacher, so I know exactly what you used to experience. They're just like, I have to, I can't. They can only check out this book. That's it. And it's like, well, that's okay. This is where it's at. So I have a very complicated relationship with reading levels. I don't ever try to steer grown-ups away, but I always encourage them. I'm like, we can get them books that are at their reading level, but let's find out what they want to read, what makes them happy being here at the library, because they're taking your stress, they're taking your worry, and they're almost terrified of their own reading level. But if we can get them to go through the shelves, see the forward-facing books, and be like, oh, a Kelly Yang book, wow, a Nick Stone book, Jason Reynolds, dinosaur books, princess books, all these books are here. I really want to read them, and just say, pick out one that you love. That's when you can mirror it with reading levels and say, okay, because this is how you get your kids at reading level, is you get them to love reading. I think that's probably the biggest proponent that I'm trying to teach people. I don't call myself an educator of teaching people how to read. I'm just trying to remind them of how fun reading can be, that there is a book for everybody out there. And I think that's how you get kids. So that fourth grade is like that magic level of, if they're not at fourth grade reading level, they're stuck. And that's when we panic and we're like, oh, we forgot about fifth grade. We forgot about sixth grade. We forgot about sophomore in high school. But it's just like, let them enjoy reading at every single level, because they're going to devour those second grade books. They're going to devour the third grade books, the fourth grade books, and they're going to have no choice but to keep on going up and up and up, because they've developed a love for books. And then you'll see that the worries start to dissipate. The fear is like, oh, I'm not afraid of my own reading levels because I just want all the books, and I know there are people out there who can help.
My friend, I think you're cutting yourself too short by not calling yourself an educator. You're just teaching people the love of reading. So you got to give yourself a pat on that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. And I think, and you're right, excuse me, we have to start teaching everyone it's okay to read just books, and just okay to read and discover literature that, I mean, it's outside of our comfort zone and just like pique our interest.
Yes.
So, but hey, as long as us two and the whole librarianship can do that, the world is going to continue to love reading.
Exactly.
You want to show off that shirt?
Oh no, it's getting a little bit warm with my library passion. So
As it should be, as it should be. I'm very fortunate to work with an amazing youth library team, and they wanted to ask you this question.
please.
We all know that access to diverse books at the library can grow the minds and hearts of library kids, just like we've been talking about in my last question. Not to mention nurture lifelong readers. What advice or response do you think can you give to parents who try to discourage their children from reading a certain book that the child is excited about, such as graphic novels, for instance?
You know what I started to realize, I think, like as I've been more and more in the last year talking about audiobooks counting as real books, graphic novels counting as real books, comics counting as real books, which they very much are. I learned that I don't think it's necessarily grown-ups honestly believing that they don't count as real books. I think it's just that they're honestly stuck in their own childhood, in what made them reluctant readers and what made them fearful of reading, of not being the biggest readers themselves, is that that's what they were told as kids. So I think I like to encourage grown-ups who say that, to say that it's like, you know what, libraries across the nation, we believe that graphic novels are real books, that they're very important. To where like it's okay, like, and I tell them, I'm like, I'm older than I look. I grew up the same way, not from my grown-ups, not from my parents, or from other people saying, yeah, graphic novels, comic books, they're fun, but they're not the same as a middle grade book, as a chapter book. And they're just saying, we've learned so much. We've learned that the brain is firing on all cylinders with these books, with these graphic novels, with manga, with everything that your kid loves, like One Piece, Naruto. These are real books. It's not cheating. It is a real book. And I think it's important for librarians, for teachers to be able to voice that and say, yes, that's what we grew up with, but we've changed. We realized how important different formats of literature are. You can almost see like the walls like tumbling down on their faces, and it's because they just needed to hear somebody else say, it is true. As an educator, this is it. It's okay to realize that we've learned, that we've come so far with what a book is. And it's also, I think, what I often have success in is talking about, like, think of how important it was for us as kids to love picture books. I mean, this whole arm is covered in picture books. It's Richard's Carey tattoos. It's Where the Wild Things Are tattooed. It's the monster at the end of this book. And it's like, think about how much we loved all these books when we were little, these picture books. It's what made many of us readers. And so it's like, yes, as kids, it was important for us. That's all we learned. That's all we read was books with pictures. So what happens as we become teenagers, as we become adults, that all of a sudden pictures and books make it a lesser book? And it's like nothing. It's the exact same thing. Those pictures and books, those picture books, that's what hooked us on reading. And that's what's so important, so valuable about those graphic novels, the comic books, those manga. It's like the pictures don't make them any lesser. They make them even more inclusive for even more readers, for the dyslexic readers, for the autistic readers, for every single person to say, yeah, I love this book. There's the A. The words are still powerful in the graphic novels, in the comic books. They're still prevalent. It's not like the words disappear in those. I mean, half the time there are just as many words in graphic novels as there are in middle grade books and chapter books, in young adult books. It is still very much a book. And even more often, for the diverse part of your question, there's even more diverse authors writing graphic novels, writing comic books. A lot of adults are writing their memoirs in graphic novel form, because it is a real book. So it's just educating people and saying it still is. Your brain still receives the book as a book, even if there are pictures. It's quite okay. And it's honestly, it's just telling these grown-ups, telling these parents, telling these people who just want their kids to be readers, to love reading, to be literate. It's just like, it's okay. If they like graphic novels, if they like comic books, if they like manga, it doesn't mean they're never going to read a middle grade book, a chapter book, a fictional book, a nonfiction book. It just means that's their favorite genre. The same way, like, I don't read a lot of fantasy, but sometimes I do. And just saying, like, again, we're talking so much about the love of library, the love of books. It's just emphasizing that that's what's important about reading, and that's how you hook them. I think when you have these conversations, that's when they're like, okay, cool, because it gives these grown-ups, these parents, a way to say, you know what, my child is not behind. they are still excelling. They are literate. I knew they were literate, but I didn't think the educators, the teachers were going to see what I see in them. And it just shows them how much educators, how much libraries, how much teachers see the value and see how worthy their child is, how worthy they are as a reader of all these different formats of books.
I don't know about the rest of the audience, but I think you're speaking to the choir, or you're at least speaking to me.
Hopefully so. That's always a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, let's switch topics a little bit of our conversation. We're still talking about librarianship, but a more deeper level. I'm very fortunate to work in a diverse uh, staff here at the Oak Park Public Library, but I'm very honored to speak with you. I think when it comes to your content, there's one particular video that I saw either on TikTok or Instagram where it was like, I'm proud to be a Black male librarian.
Yeah.
And, believe it or not, it's not a lot of us. I think it's like
No.
7%. And and it's so rewarding to see not just you, but other male librarian content that's out there, just like pushing the culture, pushing the um a positive impact forward to say to other BIPOC communities that you belong in the library too. And just because of past instances in this country about literacy and like access, you belong here as well. So I want to give you your flowers and say thank you for paving the road for people like me to do the work and just to encourage more representation in our field.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, it's so important. It's so valuable. I think for me, it's important, as I alluded to earlier, that I didn't see people of color behind the library desk when I was a kid. And I think I left the library in March of 2024. And even in January, February of 2024, end of 2023, there were still kids who would come to the library. I'd hear them whispering to their grown-ups saying, like, I didn't know that a Black person could work at the library. I didn't know like he looks like me. He has hair like me. He has skin like me, and just not believing that I was actually working at the library. And I'm in Northern California. I'm in one of the most diverse counties in the United States of America. But I think I take to heart so much of what you say, and I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me because my grandparents. I would talk about about my grandparents and how they weren't always able to visit the library. My grandmother, she recently passed away at the age of 90, and towards the end of her life, I had the privilege of having even more conversations with her. Um, Me and my mom talking about like her favorite books, talking about her library experiences. And she's like, "Oh, I love the Dick and Jane books. I love all those different ones." But she always talked about how like she wasn't able to use the library as a kid. There were no libraries for people who looked like her. She didn't have a library card as a kid, not because her grown-ups, her parents didn't take her to the library, but because it was forbidden. And then she always talked about like how proud she was. Like I ended up going to visit the Arkansas library, which is where she's from, which is where she fled to get to California. So she was always super proud that like now I yap about libraries to people where she couldn't always even visit a library. So for you to say all those kind things, for you and I to have this conversation about libraries as library people means the world to me to be able to continue on her legacy and my grandfather's legacy, my other grandparents' legacy of their Mexican, and just saying, hey, this is it. We're still preserving these stories. We're capable of being library people. And it's so powerful for even the library kids of today to say, I always see they're going to save the world. And they are just by being themselves, by being hopeful, by being joyful, by being literate and preserving their own stories and telling their stories, just as they are. It doesn't have to be steeped in race and culture, but just their lived experiences as they are. I think that's just so very valuable.
I appreciate that, my friend. To lead off to that response, one of my many questions is what unique, I think you kind of already answered it, but let's confirm that really quickly. What unique perspectives and experience do you bring to your work as a BIPOC male?
I think kind of what again, yeah, you're very right. I think what we just discussed is one of like the controversial things I bring forward. But I think oftentimes I get asked by librarians at conferences, by grown-ups with library kids who are interested in librarianship, which I think is so cool. I think it's cool that I've had the honor of having library kids dress like me for Halloween, dress like me for career day, but also still dress like those other librarians that I talked about. I get pictures from library kids dressed in their cardigans, in their high buns, in their old school spectacles, and like it's cool that like they're not mocking anybody. They're just like, this is what I want to be. This is what I'm dressed as. So it's so cool. It's so cool for that, and I bring that up to say like I'm constantly looking for ways to convince library kids that librarianship is for them, that it is something that's possible. It's possible for young boys, for young boys of color, for men of color to join library land. And I think a lot of it is that it's oftentimes it's very difficult for people to afford to become a librarian. People don't realize that because of that master's degree requirement, it makes it quite difficult to become a librarian. So it's talking about like, what's the happy medium? Like, yes, it is a requirement to have a master's degree. A master's degree is necessary, but how do we get to a place where we can teach the nuances of librarianship, of what goes into that master's degree, but maybe at a bachelor's degree level, or maybe at a on the job experience, so that we can truly encourage people to want to join libraries. But often, most important, I often tell kids like, you don't have to be a librarian in title to be a library person. You can still support the library as an assistant, as an associate currently with that master's degree requirement, as an associate, as the various things that it's called in different states, and just encouraging people to say, you know what, there's so many different ways that you can support libraries without being a librarian in title, but also that you can be a librarian. So I would say the most controversial thing that I bring forward is, one, just a constant pursuit of knowledge, of trying to convince people that library land is for them, while talking about the realities and the difficulties of being a library worker, of being a library person. That I talk about library joy, but it is difficult, it is stressful, it is worrisome to be a library person. So I think that I would say that's my answer, if that mini TED talk makes sense.
Well, I wish I had more time to go further into that conversation, but maybe our paths will meet again and we can have that more conversation
I hope so.
down the road. But I want to ask you some non-librarian questions, but we'll lead back into librarian questions in a second.
Sure.
You can probably call me a fan, an observer, maybe a stalker. I'll let you decide based on this question. I see in your Instagram that you have the Dallas Wings jerseys, you have the Phoenix Mercury, you have the Golden State Valkyries jersey, and you were recently in Miami for the Unrivaled League, for the 3-on-3 women's league. So I can tell you're a big fan of women's basketball. What
Yeah.
drove you to the sport, and how do you see the growth and visibility of women basketball impacting culture?
I love basketball. I love basketball ever since I was a kid. I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn that I probably love basketball almost as much as I love libraries and books. I think the biggest reason I love basketball is mainly, well, not one. It is my parents. The funny spelling of my name, the unique way that I spell Michael, is that I'm a big Lakers fan, even though I grew up in Northern California. My dad has always loved the Lakers because of one of my uncles. So the spelling of my name is after Mychal Thompson, one of the Lakers greats, who's also the father of Klay Thompson from the former of the Golden State Warriors, now Dallas Mavericks. So basketball is steeped even in my name. But for both my parents, my mom played basketball in high school. She played it in college, and she's been a coach of her high school girls basketball team for several years. So I've always loved it because of her. So I'm a huge fan of women's sports. I grew up watching UConn, grew up watching Maya Moore and Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, and all of them play basketball. I went to a lot of Sacramento Monarchs games as a kid, watching people like Tisha Penicheiro play. To Cheryl Swoops. I didn't get to see Cheryl Swoops, but watching Cheryl Swoops on TV, all the various legends. So I'm so excited that more and more people are becoming fans of women's sports. I was recently at the Final Four in Tampa, Florida. So it was very cool to see UConn hoist their 12th trophy, to see Paige Beckers get one. That was super awesome. I'm excited for the future. I love the things that Caitlin Clark is doing for women's basketball. I love what Angel Reese is doing. I love that people like Haley Van Lith are talking about their mental health. It's just so cool. I think it's cool for people to see that it's just as interesting, just as exciting as men's basketball. That there's some of the best basketball players in the world, just as much as Steph Curry, LeBron James, all those sorts of folks. And from a library perspective, it's also very cool like to let them know that there are biographies of these players in the library, that people like Elena Deladon are writing books about basketball, and that they're on the library shelf. So it's super cool, and I love it. I love going to the games. I always have the best of times, and I like to see a new library when I go check out the other stadiums and other teams as well.
Well, we gotta get you up here in Chicago for a Sky game.
I'm hoping to. I
Yeah.
want to see the Sky play the Fever. That's my goal.
Hey, I think someone can make it happen.
Somebody.
Another personal question I wanted to ask. You're from one librarian to another. You're a very fashionable librarian. Uh, I think in your previous response to one of my questions is back in the day when librarians were wearing like the pearls and like the cardigans and like the suits and like ties and all that. When I see your content, it's just like I'm in a really colorful shirt. I'm in Air Maxes and I'm just comfortable being who I am. So my question to you is, how do you see fashion and personal connections connecting with your work as a librarian?
It's fun. I love it. I think it's the biggest connection. It's the way that we can show who we are. Like even if you have a strict library system where like you have to where you have to wear the library shirt all the time. I'm like, you know what? You can still wear like headbands, fun headbands. You can always show your flair, who you are, and your socks. So I think there's always a way, just kind of like show a little bit of yourself and your socks and your shoes, your earrings, your headwear, whatever it may be. But I just love it. I just think it's a lot of fun. I think when I first became a library assistant, so after being a library shower for a couple of years, I got promoted to library assistant. On those first days, I think I did wear a tie for the first like 3 days of that job. My coworkers were like, "Why are you wearing a tie? You're walking around the library, pushing the cart, and you look like you're in charge of the library. You gotta switch it up." I was like, "Oh, okay. I just always wanted to have a job where I got to wear a tie. And I thought this was a job, but all right, no problem." And I started wearing different things. I started like kind of developing like my wardrobe that you see now. And a lot of it really changed, I think, when I became a children's librarian. I just saw that I could relate to them with my clothing because I like Pokemon, I like dinosaurs, I like dragons. I'm in the Bay Area. I like basketball. I like sports. And I think I learned as a children's librarian, just like as trying to connect with the unhinged, joyful library kids, trying to give them book recommendations, trying to give them things. I realized that they wear what they love on their person. If they're wearing a Spider-Man shirt, if they're wearing Bluey shoes, if they're wearing a Paw Patrol backpack, if they're wearing wristbands that show their favorite team. I'm just like, they're not wearing that for nothing. They're wearing it because they're obsessed with that particular thing at the moment. And that's a conversation that we can have. And I realized like I can do the same thing. I can wear those fun shirts, those fun clothes, and it's a way to people to say, "Hey, your shirt has Princess Bride on it. Your shirt has Lord of the Rings. Like, is that a Goofy movie shirt?" And it's a way like to start conversation and then just to go from there. So I think that's the best thing. I encourage more and more library people to do the same. That's why I love going to conferences, to see all the fun library shirts and be like, "Hey, that's cool. Where'd you get that?" And it just starts this conversation and just gives you just like the briefest glimpse into who people are, just from their shirts, from their shoes, again from jewelry, whatever it may be, and just like that's just fun. This is a way for us to have a conversation. The conversation may turn deep. It may be something that's as simple as who's your favorite Goofy movie character?
Can you do me a favor? My team knows that I love shoes and I love funky shirts. Who's your connect? Or can you share your connect's contact info?
I absolutely can. I am not a person who guards where they get shirts from. People always ask me. I think I wear a cat sweater a lot. People always ask me where that cat sweater is. I'm not lying when I don't say I know who it's from. I could check the tag, but I don't know if the tag, if I got it from the right person. So that's why I never say who that sweater is from. I get most of my funny shirts from a group called the Roosevelts, or I think it's RVLST, something along those lines. They're very kind. They have all sorts of fun shirts. Again, Goofy movie, Lord of the Rings, Princess Bride. If you're a big Andre the Giant fan like I am, all sorts. So no, if whatever I'm when I wear when people ask, I'm always like Roosevelt's. Old Navy, Costco. I have no shame. I let people know where it's from. They found it. rsvlts.com.
Appreciate that, Margita. Now, a part of this moderation gig, I have to ask you the second question. Do you know the lyrics of the library card song?
That having fun isn't hard when you got a library card.
Absolutely.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I always know that part. I actually was honored to be able to sing that part with Arthur Reed in an episode. So I was going, having fun isn't hard when you got a library card. But I do wonder. I don't think I've ever known the entire song by heart, just because I always just focused on that part, and I would just sing for 3 minutes. Having fun isn't hard when you got a library card, as Arthur and the gang sang the whole lyrics.
Well, then that was my next question. I was like, can you sing it for us? But you already did.
Oh, I love that. I am not a singer. When I did story time, I lived and died by a Bluetooth speaker. I would tell the library kids, like, if the Bluetooth isn't working, you're getting an extra book or two. But if not, we're gonna sing Lori Berkner. We're gonna sing Shake Your Sillies Out, with me in the background, with people who can actually sing, taking the power vocals.
All right, I have three more questions before we get to the audience questions. I don't, for this next question, I don't think a lot of people ask you this question, so I'm curious what your thoughts are. What is your thoughts on AI in libraries?
Oh, good question. I'll try to be more concise in my responses so we can get to the Q&A part.
Yeah,
Um, I would say this is probably my most controversial thing of AI. I'm not against AI, but I would have to be convinced to be a supporter of AI outside of like talking to Alexa, talking to Siri, talking that sort of thing. I have trouble with AI design, AI illustration, just because I have so many friends, so many colleagues who are illustrators who do create artwork. I believe it does them a disservice to use AI, and especially to create books and other things when people are so extremely talented with their creativity. So I think that's where a lot of my like reluctance to support and use AI comes from, is just trying to give more and more illustrators, more and more artists credit for the remarkable talent that they have. Um, but I'm trying to learn a lot more. I know that more and more conferences are doing things on AI in librarianship and creating schedules and creating various displays and collateral. So I'm open to learning more, but I just really want to focus on being able to support illustrators and artists in the incredible work that they do.
and that's a fair point. What are some of the biggest changes you've observed in libraries since you started your career?
I think the biggest change really is that we're actively trying to make the library a more belonging space. I think we've always wanted to do that. I think that's always been the beacon of libraries, is that it is a safe place. It's a place where everyone belongs. But I think for the longest time we talked about the word welcome more than we did belong, and we didn't realize how different those two things are. Welcoming and belonging. They're both very important, but belonging is much different than being welcome. Belonging means that you go the extra mile to go above and beyond to show people that they're not just welcome at the library, that they belong. You can tell a neurodivergent person, you can tell a disabled person that they're welcome at the library, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not trying to make more ramps at the library, if you're not trying to implement buttons in the library restrooms so that people in wheelchairs, people who are hearing impaired or vision impaired, can actually get in and out of the bathroom, out of the stalls. If you're not trying to provide headphones for people who may have sensory issues, if you're not trying to create more meeting rooms, more quiet places, knowing that the library is a louder place now. It's not the ultimate place of shushing. Library people don't shush a lot of people anymore, and saying yes, the library is a little bit noisy, so everyone does belong, but we recognize that some neurodivergent people struggle with noise, so we want to be able to give them a space where they can enjoy the library just as much. And that's creating a space where it's belonging. And it's not saying, oh, we don't want you to be here, but it's like you have to try to create that belonging atmosphere. And I love that more and more libraries are having these discussions, having meetings, not just amongst themselves, but with the public, so they know how to address all those needs, so they can indeed assure people that you do belong in this library, and we may not have enough funding to make all your dreams come true at the local library, but we're trying. Even if it takes us a year to wait for the next fiscal budget, we want to address these needs so that we can prove to you that we want this to be your library just as much as anybody else's.
I appreciate that. And then my last question, and I know we're going to run into some audience questions, is besides expressing your joy for libraries, you've been very um, proudly open talking about your mental health. Um, and well, my first question is, how is your mental health journey right now? And then what role does self-care play in your life, and what advice do you have for others?
Yes, I guess I kind of address things a little bit backwards. I think for me, I'm always trying to convince people that they should stay one more day, even one more hour. I think it's just so important for us to assure people that they do belong in the world, that their presence is important. But I think the self care for me is just trying to take more and more breaks and trying to encourage other people to do the same, encouraging library people, encouraging workers to take those 15-minute breaks to make sure you take your full half-hour lunches, hour-long lunches. It seems like such a small thing to do, but it goes such a long way. Take even a little bit of time for yourself to take a vacation if you can. Go somewhere cool or stay at home for a staycation. I love staycations. They're my favorite. Just me and my cats watching Netflix, watching Hulu, catching up on audiobooks, just enjoying the day. And my mental health is doing okay. I mean, it's doing much better. I mean, I think a lot of people are starting to realize that I've been more open about the fact that um, when I left the library on March 1st of 2024, my intention on March 2nd, 2024 was to take my own life. But now it's April 10th, 2025, and I am still here talking with the good people of Oak Park Public Library, which is such an honor to do. It's so cool to be in a place where I don't entirely love life, I would honestly say, but I'm on a mission to learn to like myself, to like life, to love life, and libraries, library people, library kids mean such a great deal to me. Every day is a little bit different. Every day is a chance to keep on going, just to be for me to be thankful that I can still call my mom, I can still call my dad, my siblings, I can still look back on text conversations with my grandma. I get to hear from library kids. Sometimes they'll make me dogman pictures. People will talk about their own experiences with their mental health. And it means so much. I think it sometimes is a little bit heavy, but it's very, very cool that people are willing to talk about their mental health. And I just appreciate it that I can even play just a small role in people being able to talk about their anxiety, their panic, their depression, their nightmares, and admit that it's okay to not be okay, that they're not okay. That's the first step toward getting to okay, is asking for help. Even if it's talking about struggles, I think talking about your struggles is an unknown way to ask for help, to talk about very real things. And it means a lot to me. I'm having such a good day now talking with you all. It's only 5 o'clock for me, so I have another 7 hours left in the day to cherish these memories, whereas you guys only have five or so hours left. So no, I'm doing as well as can be, and I'm just forever thankful to all the library people. And all the library people of the world who keep me going. Self care for me is sometimes I'll rewatch Mr. Rogers episodes. I rewatch Mr. Rogers episodes quite a bit lately. Watching Reading Rainbow, watching Bob Ross, but I'm also a big fan of Bob Burgers, and I just got a Peacock subscription, so rewatching The Office, rewatching Parks and Rec, and of course, always looking for new book recommendations to read.
Well, my friend, I'm grateful that you're here sharing your story with us, and keep going strong, my friend.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right, as far as the audience questions, I will do my best to get through all of them. And if I butcher your name, I do apologize. Um, the first one is from Caitlin. They said, it is a scary time for libraries, librarians, and education. How can we, I'm sorry, how can we support our libraries, and how can we support our librarians?
That's such an important question. It is indeed scary times. I think the first way to be able to help libraries and library persons is by asking the questions that they just asked, and not even asking people like myself. I think it's important to ask a person like myself, to ask you, to talk to people like the Lavender Librarian, people like Billy Allen, Three Kings Visions, but also to ask it of the local library, because every local library is experiencing a different level of fear, a different level of worry with all that's happening. So wherever your local library is, your local library person, ask them the same things, because the answer is going to be a little bit different each time, and you can learn how you can truly impact their life in your own library as much as you can. But I think the best ways are to ask other people how they're supporting the library. I think it's important to tell people to go to get a library card. That helps all libraries when they're making funding decisions. Is how many people in the community have library card. If there's 100,000 people in your community, they want to know how do we get to 10,000? How do we get to 20,000? How do we get to 85,000? So the more people that have a library card, the better for funding chances, for funding opportunities, for increased funding. And after you get that library card, again, you don't even have to use that library card. Getting that library card is super helpful. But step 2 is to actually use that library card, borrow things. It does help if you use digital services, if you're using Libby, if you're using Canopy, if you're using Hoopla Digital, if you're using Cloud Library. You're still helping the library just as much as if you check out the physical items. But make sure you go to the library, even if it's once a year or once a month. Walk through those doors and walk right back out. Go to the programs, the author talks, the animal shows, the cooking demonstrations. And I think most importantly is just keep on telling people how cool the library is. That it's the best place ever. There's something for everybody. You don't have to love books. You can. There's a book for you. You don't all have to get a library card tattooed on you. But you can if you're 18 and you're able to get a tattoo. But I think those are the best ways you can support your local library and library people.
All right. AC said, can you comment on why funding is so important to youth services? With how scary these bills to defund the libraries in my area. I would love to hear some examples of how you've seen funding help children further their love for the library.
I love how specific this question is towards the youth of the library. I think a lot of it goes into my previous response to the other person, but I think specific things that funding does to help the youth are one, we're looking for more and more ways to enhance the Braille and Talking Books libraries in each state. So trying to create more and more books in Braille, trying to create more and more ways for audiobooks to be able to be available to the youth, so they can have different ways to learn. I think that's something that Libby is often working on, is trying to be more accessible. That's what drove them to use a dyslexic font for many of their ebooks. That's the reason that we have 1x speed, 1.5, 3x, 4x, and so on speed in audiobooks, is because the brain acts differently when we're listening to audiobooks. And that's all part of funding. Those are all things that states do for libraries. Those are all things that local libraries do. I think even something as simple as the books in each community is doing that. That's what funding is for. Trying to say, you know what, this is what the kids love. This is what they need. This is what they're learning about. This is how we increase the nonfiction collection. Kids want more and more cooking books. They want to learn new languages to communicate with their peers, with their friends. This is how we get books in Japanese, in Spanish, in every single language, because there's every single kid in your community, even if you don't know it. And also to be able to offer different programs for authors to come to your library, for illustrators to be able to show kids, this is what's possible. Here's your hero. Here's Jeff Kinney. Here's Kelly Yang. Here's Raina Telgemeier. Here's Jason Reynolds. Here are all these heroes that you can be like just by being a reader, just by loving to write, by telling your story. And so much more, creating after school programs, creating a way for them to be able to get backpacks to go on these trips, and so many dedicated things. I think the good chunk of the budget is used for youth programming, for summer reading program, in an effort just to be able to reach them, to show them that the library is for them, and to make sure that their education is the best place possible. And I want to comment again specifically on the books aspect, just because so often with everything going on that this person alluded to, the school libraries often aren't able to get access to all the books that they want to because of rules and regulations. But the public library is often able to provide even more access to these books, which I think is super cool. It's super necessary. That's why it's so important for school librarians and public librarians to have a good relationship, so that sometimes we can't have enough diverse books in school libraries because of the banned books, because of the attack on education. It impacts public libraries too, but it's saying, you know what, we have this budget. We have people who are dedicating funds specifically to the library, and we want this to happen. We want people to know these books are not scary. There is no agenda in these books. they're just a story, and we're going to use the funds to give these stories to your kids. Because so many kids, I talk to kids all the time in libraries, in my school library visits, and they are outraged about banned books. They're outraged that people are trying to take away the right to read. And they're like, why? They're just books. We just want to read. We just want to learn about our friends, learn about our neighbors. You're not even telling us why the book is banned. You just say we can't read it. You take it away from the library. And that's what the funding does. It addresses their worry, their need of why? Why are you doing this? And we use the funding to say, good question. Here's the book. We're giving it back to you. Here are ways that you can grow, so that you can tell, so that we can have these honest conversations with the grown-ups. So there's so much. We could have had this whole entire talk on that question. So I'm so glad that they phrased that question that way.
Right on. And I do apologize. I wish we had 3 hours to talk to you, but I'm only restricted to an hour. So this is the last audience question that I will ask Mychal at this time.
Sure.
So
If you have one more after that, I have a little bit of time. So it's all your guys' call.
okay, we'll play it by ear.
I know you guys got to go home. So
Yeah. Here's the next question. Someone wrote, I work in education access, so I partner with libraries a lot. It has become increasingly difficult to get good attendance at our events because how busy life has gotten for the average family. Any tips for increasing engagement with the community? And then separately, what is the last book you read that surprised you?
Ooh, that's a good question. For the first one, I think it's something that I learned as a library person. I think for my first program as a children's librarian, I had 0 people come to the program, so I had that legendary zero attendance program right off the bat that discouraged me. I think something I learned from talking to my boss, talking to my peers, to my colleagues, is just to keep on trying. I think it's most important if you're having low attendance to just honestly talk with your community. I don't know how old the students are in this person's community, who they're trying to reach, but I would engage them. I would ask them what they need. If it's mental health workshops, if they love animals, if they want animal conservation groups to come by, if they want to reach out to restaurants for cooking demos, and whatever the community says, to try to bring those programs to them in whatever ways. It doesn't have to be their exact ways, but whatever subject is important. And also just to keep on offering those programs again and again. Once they say this is what we need, I think that's the hard part. Is once you ask for their feedback, all 20 people may not show up right away. They may give the idea and they don't show up. But if you do it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, they believe that you're actually listening to them. They see that you're going above and beyond to respect what they had to say in the honest conversation, and they start showing up and starts doing word of mouth. They're like, "Hey, this library person actually listened to me when they said, what do you want at the library? What do you want at the school?" So it may take a little bit of time, but you'll see it start to happen. So I would say patience is key, and also just checking in with your community and seeing what they need, what they want. Still keep on doing your own fun ideas, but the community, if you ask them what they need, they'll tell you what they need. They'll even more tell you what they want. It's so very special. It's so very important. And last book I was surprised by. That's a hard one, and actually I'll show you. Machine Gun Kitty has finally arrived. I think I started reading the new Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping. And I won't give any spoilers, but I'm very surprised by all this happening. Given that I kind of know the results of the book because I read the original Hunger Games, so I kind of know what should happen at the end. But I find myself surprised by how surprised I am with each moment in the book, even though I kind of know what the spoilers are going to be because I read the first book. So I'm surprised. I'm so surprised reading this new Hunger Games book.
And are you sure you're willing to take one more question before your final thoughts?
Absolutely.
You are the man for the people. All right, someone wrote, I used to read so much when I was a kid and a young adult, but with work and responsibilities, I've fallen off. What is a good first book to get back into?
I love when adults ask this question because it's the same thing that happens to me. I often find myself struggling to keep on reading just because I think young adult and I think middle grade fiction is just so imaginative just because of who they're trying to reach. and the fact that they're so easily convinced to fall in love with these various worlds. So when people ask these questions, I always encourage them to read books that they loved as a kid. I think that's such a great way to get back into reading, to be like, this is the book that made me a reader. For me, it's The Giver by Lois Lowry. It's Holes by Lewis Sacker. It's Wayside School by Lewis Sacker. It's Beverly Cleary books. It's The Hobbit. It's Lord of the Rings. So many books. I think I really love a book called Love Among the Walnuts by Gene Ferris. Hunger Games. If you want to catch up on the new Hunger Games book that I just mentioned. So that's what I would say. I would say read whatever books like are nostalgic for you, even if it's picture book, just to be like, just to get that good energy of reading books back into your life. I think that's a great way to do it. I think I could give books by Lucy Foley, books by C.J. Tudor if you're looking for good thrillers, books by Shirin J. Zhao. My mom really loves Jodi Picoult. But again, it's such a tricky question because it's like, well, what books do you like? I think that's a whole point. That's a whole good point of that library interview. So I would encourage this person. One, if you want to, you can email me. My email is all over social media. I'm the only person who responds to those emails. I do eventually try to catch up with people. But otherwise, I would say to use your local library, go to the Oak Park Public Library and ask them. But most importantly, again, just if you loved a book as a kid, as a teen, reread that book, and you may find that you're feeling the magic of the books all over again. Oh, Judy Blume. Judy Blume was another legendary author whose books I love as well.
All right, and really quick, what was it like to being an author?
Oh, it was amazing. I loved every single moment of it. It's so cool. I mean, I have Arthur Reed's library card tattooed on me, so it was probably one of the coolest things I'll ever do in my life. I really love that they asked if I wanted to speak or if I wanted to do the show with the person who's Arthur Reed's voice, and I was like, absolutely not. You're not going to ruin the magic of Arthur for me. I don't want anything to do with that person. I only want to talk to Arthur himself. So it was special. Definitely a bucket list moment. I never thought should even be on my bucket list because I didn't think it was possible.
Well, we're happy for you and all your success. Did you want to share any final thoughts before we say good night for the evening?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, again, I would just encourage you just to please keep on going. I talk about libraries. I talk about library joy. I talk about mental health all along. I would just like to encourage people that the world is so much better with you in it. The world is best with you in it. I'm so happy to be alive at the same time as you. I always like to conclude things by talking about how Mr. Rogers' mom always talked about look to the helpers. I would encourage you not to just look to the helpers, but to be a helper. You're an educator. You're a librarian. You're a library person. You already are a helper beyond ways in which you'll never know until you see someone in the wild and they say, "Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for encouraging me." And for everybody else, you are also capable of being helpers. You're helping right now just by attending a library event. Someone asked how you support libraries, attending things just like this. So I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to be amongst you all, and thank you for inviting me. I hope to one day visit the Oak Park Public Library in person and check it out and see what it's all about. Maybe we'll have our competition of a red sweater and a blue sweater, and we'll see what happens. Showing off library shoes, library cardigans, and the such. But seriously, thank you so much for having me. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for your questions. I love library questions, and I just love being able to talk to anyone who wants to support and love the local library.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Margita for trusting me with moderating. I hope I did you all well. Thank you, Michael, for attending. Thank you for your time and your expertise. I appreciated our conversation. I'm very sincere. I hope our paths do cross again because I did have a list of questions front and back. So hopefully one of these days we'll chop it up and get into more conversations in the future. But for everyone else, continue to support your libraries. Happy Library Week for everybody. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. See you at Chicago Sky game.
Yes. Hopefully I catch you at a game.
Sure. All right. Well, stay safe.
All right, you too.
Take care.
And recording?